Nigeria is gearing up for its 7th democratic elections come the 25th of February. This will see 18 candidates, 18, vying for the presidency. But there are warnings that several challenges may threaten the smooth running of the polls, including a new electoral act which is aimed at curbing rigging. Let's get your sense of what else you need to know and speak to political scientist Martin Ihembe, who is also a PhD candidate with the University of Pretoria. In fact, he's doing his research on elections in Nigeria. Martin, it's lovely to see you. Thanks for making time to speak to us here on Newzroom Afrika. There are some in the commentariat who are saying that election security may be the biggest threat to these polls. To what extent would you agree with that?
Good morning, Ayanda. Thank you for having me on the show. Yes, there is the problem of our insecurity in the country, but to the extent to which the national chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission assured Nigerians, I don't think the elections will be postponed. They will go ahead as planned, because he said this vehemently, that the commission is not contemplating on adjusting the electoral timetable. So the elections will go on the 25th of February, beginning with the national polls, the presidential and National Assembly elections.
What does that then mean for threats around having a fair, free and credible election if we know that the polls have to go ahead, even though there are very real threats to the integrity of this election?
Yeah, and if you've been a keen observer of elections in Nigeria, you will remember that this is not the first time. We've been here before. In 2015, and I think in 2015, I remember the National Security Advisor had to give the presidency an update on the insecurity situation in the country, and the elections had to be rescheduled. So this is not the first time. So even if the commission is contemplating a reschedule, I think what the commission said was to call the attention of the security agencies on the need to improve on the insecurity situation in the country, because there have been cases of kidnapping, cases of banditry in the country, which the government has been battling with for quite some time. So it was just a pointer that the government, national government, needs to improve on this situation. Otherwise, it is likely that the election might be postponed. And I think the government is responding to that, because election is what benefits the ruling elite. So if there is a shift in the timetable, whatever government that will be in place will be a non-democratic government and will not enjoy legitimacy. And I don't think they would want to do that.
Yeah, and ironically, that may lend itself to even more violence. But how optimistic can we be that these issues can be meaningfully addressed by the 25th of February, especially because of how long-standing they are, as you've rightly pointed out, but also how deeply entrenched the challenges are? In 2020, for instance, Boko Haram, I understand, attacked an electoral commission's office in Borno State. In 2022, in April, a commissioner was shot and killed at Imo State. It just feels like there isn't an ability to arrest the situation, as it were.
Yeah, you know the situation as much as I do. Yes, Imo State is a boiling point. Quite true. Up until recently, the problem is there. And I think the government is not ready to take on the situation head on. Otherwise, they know the parties involved. And what actually triggered the situation in Imo was a Supreme Court judgment that reversed the candidacy of I can't now remember the name exactly, the PDP candidate who won the election, and it declared someone who came fourth in that election as a winner of the election. And since then, there's been problem in that state. But I think in all, if the government wants to sanitize the situation just for the election to hold, they can, because usually elections in Nigeria, movements are restricted. So it will be easy for you to know those who want to create problem if you restrict movement. There is no interstate movement. Even within the intrastate movement is sometimes limited. So election security is quite a problem in Nigeria, but I don't think that it will be a stumbling block if the commission is ready, because usually the problem is the state of preparedness on the side of the commission. And in this time, we've seen that the commission has really shown the capacity to conduct elections that will be acceptable to all Nigerians, with the high level of technological innovations that have come to bear recently. So the armed forces too, I think the Air Force is on top of the situation. I'm quite optimistic that the elections will go as the INEC National Commissioner pointed out recently.
I'm glad you speak about some of the technological interventions, so to speak, because the concern here is that the threats are not only on physical infrastructure, like, for instance, the offices of the IEC in Nigeria, but there's also concerns around how this war, as it were, is also being waged virtually, online, things like misinformation, etc. To what extent do you reckon that may add complications?
Yes, I think the problem of misinformation, as you rightly mentioned, is not just on the part of the support. The presidential candidates have created that problem. There is an intemperate political situation in the country at the moment, so their supporters have a way of throwing out information that will tend to heat up the polity. But on the part of the INEC, that is the Independent Electoral Commission, it has really shown the capacity of improvement over the years. It's an institution, in my opinion,